You are listening to The Hero's Journey. I'm Dan Zarzana.
And I'm Jeff Garvin.
Let the journey begin. This episode of The Hero's Journey contains spoilers for The Sixth Sense from the very beginning. We strongly encourage you to watch the film first before listening to this episode. You have been warned. Jeff, do you believe in ghosts?
Dan, I definitely do not. But I have seen things I can't explain that ghosts would explain. But no, I don't believe in ghosts. You die, you die.
Give us an example of something you've seen that would be explained by just believing in ghosts.
I think I mentioned this in the Shining episode. I visited the Banff Springs Hotel, and a couple of the guys sneaked into the utility tunnels under the hotel where the laundry service is and part of the kitchens and stuff. And I saw what I thought was a man in an old bellhop's uniform pushing a luggage cart. And he turned the corner, and when I came around the corner, the luggage cart slid to a stop and hit the wall, and there was no dude there, and there was no doors. So a couple of things I've seen that made me believe maybe there's something out there that I don't understand.
That certainly sounds like a ghost to me. I've had a couple of encounters myself. Previous apartment to this one that my wife and I lived in, we had several strange occurrences that we couldn't explain. The one that freaked us out the most, though, you know when you get that sleep paralysis, you wake up but you can't move?
Yes, it's terrifying.
I had that, and I woke up and I looked at the door. I saw the shape of a man standing in the doorway. And for some reason, I said to my wife, "Do you see it too?" And she said yes.
What?
So either somebody had broken into our apartment and was standing in our bedroom door watching us. But in the morning, like, the doors were all locked, and we lived on the third floor. There was no way somebody could have climbed through a window or something. So
yeah, well, I got the heebie-jeebies.
It was a menacing feeling too.
Whether you believe in ghosts or not, they are certainly rich elements for storytelling and movie making. Given that this is our October episode, we selected 3 ghost stories from 3 eras of Hollywood, and our Patreon patrons have voted for the one they want us to discuss. In third place, with 21% of the vote, was 1982's Poltergeist, directed by Tobe Hooper.
Oh, I guess they're not here after all. I was really disappointed in this result, actually. I've never seen Poltergeist, and this would have been a great opportunity for me to see it.
Second place, with 26% of the vote, went to House on Haunted Hill from 1959, directed by William Castle.
Yeah, Vincent Price just doesn't put butts in seats like he used to.
And the winner, with a 53% majority, was The Sixth Sense from 1999, written and directed by M. Night Shyamalan.
The Sixth Sense, by the way, that is not easy to say.
Let's just forgive ourselves for saying Sixth Sense and Sixth Sense. And
I'm just going to say sick.
Sixth Sense?
Sixth Sense.
Sixth Sense.
You know what I mean.
I do.
The Sixth Sense was released on August 6th, 1999, M. Night Shyamalan's birthday, and was a huge commercial success. Fueled by word of mouth about the jaw-dropping conclusion, the film earned more than $672 million worldwide against its $40 million production budget.
Damn, son.
It was the second highest grossing motion picture of the year, next to Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace.
The film was loved by the industry. It earned 6 Academy Award nominations. Best Original Screenplay for M. Night Shyamalan, which it deserved hands down. Best Film Editing for Andrew Monshine. Best Actor in a Supporting Role for Haley Joel Osment. Best Actress in a Supporting Role for Toni Collette. Best Director for M. Night Shyamalan. And Best Picture of the Year. It won none of these awards, but what an impressive showing, especially for a psychological thriller, which usually gets snubbed at the Oscars.
Following the success of The Sixth Sense, Shyamalan became the new hotness in town. While none of his subsequent films have quite reached the critical and commercial heights of The Sixth Sense, they have grossed $3.1 billion worldwide.
Jeez, man.
Have you seen any of his other movies?
Yes, I've seen The Village. I've seen Signs. I think I've seen a couple other ones. And then I watched Old when it came out a couple years ago.
I think that was just last year or this year.
Last year?
Yeah.
I have seen other movies of his, and I've loved some of them. But to me, what sets The Sixth Sense apart is that you, by the first 10 minutes, you are absolutely attached to these characters and what's going to happen to them. And I feel like later in his career, he really got obsessed with repeating those twists. And to me, this movie's about the characters, and that's why the twist is powerful. Also, I want to acknowledge you for saying cleanly in the first take, success of The Sixth Sense, Shyamalan, all in one. Stunning performance, Dan. You're nominated.
My wife's going to kill me for this, but I think Signs is my favorite Shyamalan movie.
Really?
I really dig alien stuff, though.
Yeah.
Just the creepiness of being in this isolated farmhouse and just hearing the scrabbling of the aliens as they crawl up over the roof and as they run across. Oh, freak me out.
Now I want to watch it again.
Do you feel that prickling sensation on the back of your neck? Take shelter in your bright red blanket fort and set your thermostat to 78 degrees. This is the hero's journey of The Sixth Sense.
Act 1 begins with the ordinary world, where we see our main character in their status quo normal life. I chose Dr. Malcolm Crowe as the hero of this movie. I think it's clear that's how it's intended, and yet Cole has his own distinct hero's journey, and I probably will pop into that analysis during points in the film. But Dr. Malcolm Crowe is an award-winning child psychologist in Philadelphia. He's a workaholic and has been neglecting his doting jewelry-selling wife, Anna, who is so proud of him that she delivers all of this info herself in a cleverly framed info dump. Now, criticism aside, it's a really great way to introduce this in an efficient way. They're having a glass of wine, he's drunk, and he's received this plaque from the mayor, and she's reading it to us as we see their reflections in the plaque. Reflections and seeing things through panes is an ongoing visual motif in all of Shyamalan's work, but it's a great way to... The first time you see this movie, I didn't notice that this was an info dump. It was a genuine moment of affection and intimacy between these two people. This movie starts fast. That is all I'm going to say for Ordinary World.
That's all you're going to say. I'm wondering...
I had a feeling that you and I might diverge early in this one, so it'll be interesting to see how Act 1 unfolds. You did it on purpose.
You knew I was in a weakened condition, and you're like, I'll just...
Man, I had a hard time with this analysis, more than I have in many, many, many episodes.
Yeah, I shifted mine yesterday considerably, just yesterday when I was going through it again. I'm like, no, none of this is right.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, bring it.
Call to adventure. The hero is presented with a challenge which renders him unable to continue living in the comfort of the ordinary world. The call to adventure is the confrontation with Vincent Gray in their upstairs bedroom.
Yes.
Drunk, as you said, Malcolm and Anna stumble upstairs to get some little hanky-panky time to celebrate his mayoral certification of professional excellence or whatever.
It's a major award.
As Anna is standing by the bed, she looks down and she notices that the window next to the bed has been broken in. Malcolm starts walking towards the bathroom where he's hearing some noises. And in the bathroom is an emaciated man who has stripped down to his filthy gray underwear, obviously very disturbed.
Do you know why you're afraid when you're alone? I do.
It's a great performance, I think, by Donnie Wahlberg as Vincent Gray.
Yes.
And he clues Malcolm in that he is a former patient who he failed. Malcolm is searching his memory, trying to remember the young man's name. And his first guess is Ben Friedkin. Do you know the connection here? Why the character's name is Ben Friedkin?
I mean, I assumed it was a connection to William Friedkin because Shyamalan has said that The Exorcist was
one of his favorite movies.
Yeah,
okay. Anyway, he finally realizes that this is Vincent Gray. And as Malcolm is trying to apologize, Vincent reaches into the sink where apparently he's hidden a gun, turns around and shoots him.
Bam.
Wow, it's happened so suddenly. And then he turns the gun on himself.
Yeah.
And as Malcolm is laying back on the bed, Malcolm, I think, notably says, "Did Vincent..." The first words out of his mouth are concern for this patient.
Yeah.
Not for, "Oh my God, I've just been shot."
Yeah.
That's the end of the call to adventure. Fade to black.
I agree that his death or his being shot calls him into the journey of redemption. That takes us to refusal of the call. Confronted with fear of the unknown, and boy is he, our hero refuses to engage in the adventure. Sometimes we get refusal from within the hero, I can't, I won't, and sometimes we get refusal from without, outside forces preventing the hero from taking on the adventure. So we cut to title card the next fall, and we're looking on this nice residential street of row houses in South Philadelphia, and we see Malcolm sitting on a bench. He's reviewing notes about Vincent Gray, age 10, parents divorced, acute anxiety. And then a boy emerges from an apartment across the street, and Malcolm looks up at him and then flips the page on his notebook, and we see notes about this boy. His name is Cole Sear, age 9, parents divorced, acute anxiety, socially isolated, possible mood disorder. This is a picture of the same boy.
Yeah.
Point for point, this is what Vincent had. Mm-hmm. One note here about names. Cole's last name is Sear, like seer, one who sees. And the first thing we see him do is put on a pair of glasses with no lenses, signifying that he's the one who is seeing things as they truly are, not through the distortion of a lens. Mm-hmm. And I just, and it's just a quirk about him, and these were his dad's glasses, but it's such a great symbolic moment. And I love when filmmakers are not obvious, and they just plant something there that's a nice little character flaw that has such symbolic resonance. The kid looks up, and it's not clear whether he sees him, but we think he may see Malcolm, and then he bolts. He's like walking really, really fast away, and Malcolm follows him, but he's running away and into a church, and his fleeing is part of the refusal from without. Dan, the first act of this movie goes fast, and there are scenes in the film that to me serve functions that are Act 2 functions. And so I hesitate to name them here because I don't want to go over them twice. But to me, their first encounter in the church that follows is a test. But after that test moment, there's still more refusal. So I'm going to skip the encounter in the church and just checkmark that as tests. So Malcolm gets home late, and he sees the table bearing the remains of dinner for one, and he finds his wife asleep. And we take this to mean she's given up on him coming home. She dined alone, she went to bed. If Malcolm is on a journey of redemption, and we think he's still alive, this is his once proud, loving wife's refusal to communicate with him. So to him, this might read as refusal from without, because he expresses to Cole later how he's been neglecting his family and he needs to attend to that business. So his wife once supported him, but now she's backed off. In the beginning, she's talking about how all the sacrifices he's made and all the time he spent. But now, in the world of Malcolm's perception, she's not supportive anymore of that. He tries to get into his basement office, but he can't open the door with the red knob. This is a clue, but to me, it represents his refusal to accept the truth that he's dead. And then if you jump a couple scenes, there's more refusal at the end of the red light, green light game, which happens later in what I think is a test. At the end of that scene, Cole says, "You're nice, but you can't help me." And that's more refusal from without. So man, I jumped little scenes in there that I think are Act 2 functions, but that occur in arguably Act 1 in the screenplay. But those are the main points of refusal that I saw in Malcolm's journey of redemption through helping Cole.
I thought the encounter in the church was a refusal of the call. Malcolm enters the church following Cole, finds Cole hiding in the pews playing with toy soldiers. Malcolm introduces himself. He says, "I'm a doctor. We had an appointment today, but I missed it. I'm sorry." And Cole asks Malcolm if he's a good doctor. Malcolm says he used to be. He won an award from the mayor once, and it had an expensive frame. Mm-hmm. And what I saw as the refusal, Cole packs up his toy soldiers and leaves.
Yeah.
With that. And he says,
"I'm going to see you again, right?"
But not in a hopeful way. There's dread in his voice. You know he doesn't want to see Malcolm again, but he knows he's going to have to. I saw that as a moment of refusal.
Interesting. I don't know that I agreed that there was dread in his voice, but I sensed resignation. Like, oh boy, you're another ghost that I'm going to have to deal with. And of course, the first time you watch it, you don't know Bruce Willis is dead. You think, oh, maybe this kid's been through doctors before. Because after that several minutes they spend together, I don't get the sense that Cole is particularly afraid of Malcolm. I get the sense that of the ghosts he's encountered, Malcolm is one of the most, if not the most benign. I read that scene as a test because this is Malcolm's first opportunity to draw Cole in, and he gets answers from Cole. He gets answers about the glasses. He gets answers about his situation, and his response is, I'm going to see you again. To me, I saw that as he didn't run away again. So I agree there's refusal in that scene, but I think it's also a test. It's a test of Malcolm ice breaking. Can he make the first connection? And I think he does there.
That brings us to supernatural aid, or meeting with the mentor. The hero receives counsel on how to operate in the special world. I had a hard time finding supernatural aid in this movie. I originally thought, well, Malcolm, being supernatural himself, trying to aid Cole, is himself the supernatural aid of the movie. But the first time you see the movie, you don't know that Malcolm is a ghost. Yeah. So I'm thinking, well, okay, well, if I'm watching this from a first-time viewer's perspective, what is the supernatural aid? I just really had a hard time coming up with anything. The one thing that I pinned was the Latin phrase. And Malcolm goes home into his basement office, and he drags out this ancient-looking Latin dictionary, and he translates the Latin phrase that Cole was repeating. De profundis clamo ad te, Domine. Out of the depths I cry to you, O Lord. This kid is seriously troubled, if this is the thing he's whispering in the pews of the church.
Yeah, I had that as mentorship too. We've had study research scenes in this slot before. He's mentoring himself on what's going on with this kid, so I totally agree with that.
Did you have anything else? That was pretty much the main point that I could find.
Yeah, I have two more points, and then I have a fourth
fancy
point
boy.
That is, again, a hybrid scene. So the next one to me is at the restaurant where his wife refuses to talk to him, because he's not there. First, he kind of apologizes for being late, and then he tells her about the similarity of cases between Vincent and Cole and that he's stumped. And I think this is him seeking mentorship. His wife is someone who's been a sounding board for him in the past, and she's not available to him. So that's a place where mentorship was wanted and missing. And then a couple scenes later, Malcolm gives Cole some very clear mentoring. They're walking through the neighborhood, and Cole tells Malcolm that he's a freak. And Malcolm says, that's BS. You don't have to go through your life believing that. And Cole's quiet, and you think for a moment, oh, this kid's so deep, he's processing that. And then he goes, you said the S word. It's like he has this moment of being a completely normal 9-year-old, which is amazing. Then there's a mentorship scene that it's a much better expression of tests, but it's mentorship, it's mutual mentorship between Malcolm and Cole. So I'm going to put it here, and then also I would flag it in tests. So Malcolm goes to Cole's house, and they play this, I'm going to guess something about you, and if I'm right, you step forward. If I'm wrong, you step back. It's sort of like a red light, green light. And we get some expo about Cole's past, scary, violent drawings that freak people out, and how now he just draws rainbows. So that's backstory. So that even could be a little bit of Cole's ordinary world. But it's also a test. Is Malcolm perceptive enough to help this kid? Can he earn Cole's trust? Is this kid open to being helped? But it's also a mentor scene because Cole is teaching Malcolm what it will take to be his doctor. And there's refusal from without when he says, you're nice, but you can't help me. That scene serves so many purposes. So those were what I saw as mentor moments. Crossing the threshold. The hero must pass a barrier to enter the special world, and this crossing represents the hero's commitment to taking on the adventure. I think the primary sequence that shows crossing is the sequence where we're cutting between Lynn cleaning the house while wearing rad yellow Sony Sports Walkman headphones, which I totally had, and Malcolm and Cole's first real therapy session in the living room. For much of the film, Cole's mom, Lynn, played by Toni Collette, who was nominated for an Academy Award, rejects the idea that there's anything supernatural going on. She thinks it's Cole opening all the cabinets in the kitchen. She accuses Cole of stealing her mother's necklace. She is convinced that there's something wrong with Cole, but she's in denial that there's supernatural stuff happening. But in this sequence, she's cleaning. She's in the hallway and she throws some laundry in a basket, and she looks up at pictures of Cole on the wall, and she notices that in each photo, he's either looking at or sitting near a mysterious lens flare. I think we're to understand here that the lens flares are from ghosts. So she's noticing something's wrong here. And I think this is the beginning of her journey into understanding what's really going on with Cole and that he's experiencing supernatural phenomenon. Meanwhile, back in the living room, Malcolm is asking Cole about the free association writing that he left on his desk. Cole says he wrote upset words, and then we see Lynn find them. And in red ballpoint pen, Cole has scrawled just horrible things all over this page of notebook paper, including "Quiet the damn baby," "I'll kill you," and my personal favorite, "The only way you'll catch me is if you kill me, copper." Ghosts from the 19th century have... So at the end of their session, this is the real crossing for me. At the end of their session, Malcolm asks Cole what he wants to get out of their time together. He says, if you could change something in your life, what would it be? And Cole thinks for a moment and says,
instead of something I want, can it be something I don't want?
Okay.
I don't want to be scared anymore.
Boom. They have a stated goal. This is the beginning of their being in therapy. Let the healing begin. This sequence represents the crossing for all three of them. Malcolm officially becomes Cole's therapist, embarking on his journey of redemption. Cole enters his journey of healing himself, and Lynn enters the special world of her son's supernatural powers. Add to that, the running time here is almost exactly 30 minutes, which is perfectly on track for a nearly 2-hour movie with a tight screenplay. So all those elements to me congealed into the closest thing we have to a clear crossing of the threshold.
All right, well, that wraps up Act 1. I think it is time for a fresh cup of Joe at the Campbell Cafe.
We experience the world through our 5 senses. On August 6th, he will sense more.
I see dead people.
The Sixth Sense, rated PG-13, starts Friday, August 6th.
Dan, welcome to the Campbell Cafe. Are you having coffee spiked with NyQuil?
No, ew. I can't imagine that would taste anything.
Sneezing, coughing helps you wake up medicine.
Yeah, so we keep alluding to this. I don't know if I have COVID or not. I took a home test and it was negative, but I don't know if I trust that because my wife's was positive and I am also sick. So
yeah.
I feel like I need to go to get a PCR test and have an actual lab technician look at look at it rather than me just doing a home swab up my nose. And
you are doing admirably for a guy who has a pandemic virus in his body.
Allegedly.
I acknowledge you. Dan, what have you watched, read, played? What side quests have you taken since we last recorded?
Well, boy, I'm surprised at how much I've got listed here. I don't feel like, when I think back on the month since our last recording, I don't feel like I did a whole lot. But for our gaming YouTube channel, No Games for Old Men, I finished Chaos Gate Demon Hunters. The finale of that series aired at the end of September. And then for October, because it's, spooky season, I decided I'm going to try to do a fast playthrough of Dead Space, which is a terrifying game.
So
and I
awful.
don't know why I decided to do this, but I'm hoping people are enjoying watching it.
I have, and I hate games like this, so you're very entertaining.
On the day that I felt the absolute worst and I needed something super fun, I watched Fast and Furious 9. The Fast and Furious movies are so completely ridiculous. I love them. Inject them into my veins right now. I can subsist on those. I love the Fast and Furious movies unapologetically. They are completely bat-ass crazy. They make no sense. They've left their reason behind and they just own it.
I've never seen one.
The tone has completely shifted. From the first movie, which was just about an undercover cop trying to infiltrate a street racing crew he also suspects of hijacking freight trucks, into Fast and Furious 9, where they're like international super spies. It's just they've gone completely off the rails. But
9 movies, man.
They are so much fun.
I love it.
And then I read some books. The only one I want to mention to you specifically is You're Never Weird on the Internet, Almost, from 2015, written by Felicia Day. This is her memoir about how her career got started. Jeff, I think you might enjoy this.
Okay.
I found it really inspirational, particularly when she's talking about the struggles that she has had.
I just added it on Goodreads.
That's what I got up to. What about you, Jeff?
Well, Dan, I did some quality watching and reading. I read The Kite Runner by Khalid Hosseini, and I really loved it. It was moving, funny, scary, informative. Highly recommend. And then I listened to the audiobook of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Dan, I've always had trouble with 19th century literature. Often the stories are frame stories because apparently there was something indecent about just telling a story. So Frankenstein is an epistolary novel told through letters. And so the guy who's writing the original letters is writing to his sister, and there's like 3 long letters before he even gets to Frankenstein. And then he meets Frankenstein, who's headed for the North Pole, and Frankenstein like rolls up in a raft and begs for passage on their ship, and then tells his sad story. And I have trouble with second-order relationships. So if you're telling me about Michelle and something Michelle did, oh, okay, I'm cool. But if you're telling me about Michelle's friend, it doesn't matter what you tell me. I can't follow the logic for some reason. I don't know why. So if you just said, oh, my friend Doug, and told me, I would understand it. But the minute you put someone between you and this other person, so epistolary novels are so hard because it's someone telling a story, and then inside that story, that person's telling a story. And it's, oh man. And the other thing is that it's just the style of that time was all tell, no show. So no scenes occur in the present tense. It's always someone looking back. I did not enjoy a moment of Frankenstein. I really tried to appreciate it as a work of its time, but without the context, I was like, this is just awful. I did not enjoy it. The most exciting parts that I heard about from movies and folklore, none of that is in the book. And the thing that bothered me the most is the story of Frankenstein's creation to the end of the book takes place over 11 months. When Frankenstein comes to life, when Frankenstein's monster comes to life, he really is fire bad. And then by the end of 11 months, he speaks French, German, and English fluently. He gives long soliloquies in clear post-Victorian English. And I just found that so ridiculous. And then the other thing that I don't like about epistolary novels is I'm supposed to believe that you remembered word for word this long speech and then took the time to convey it word for word in a letter. It just didn't make any sense. So I didn't like it. It was hard for me to understand why it was so revolutionary. Clearly, I need more education. So I think I'm going to find some literary criticism of it so I can understand why it's such a big deal. And then I'm a member of the Screen Actors Guild, and every now and then I get randomly selected to be on the nominating committee for the SAG Awards. And then they invite you to live for your consideration events. And I got invited to one for Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, starring Michelle Yeoh. Dan, this movie blew my mind. It is the most original creative movie I've seen since Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I don't want to give anything away because it's so original. I don't want to spoil it, but you have to see this movie. It's absolutely blew my mind. It's got a little bit of like the Shaolin Soccer feel and Kung Fu Hustle and The Matrix. It's just incredible. And you love the characters so much from the beginning that you're willing to go on this wild ride.
All right. Well, that wraps up our side quests. Time to exit the Campbell Cafe, head back over to Studio Z and Studio G for Act 2. Act 2 begins with tests, allies, and enemies, also known as the Road of Trials. Having crossed the first threshold, here we go. Having crossed the first threshold, the hero meets allies, makes enemies, and must pass a series of tests to prove their worthiness.
So glad you got this section. So glad.
This segment brought to you by NyQuil. Allies. I would say, actually, I've got Anna Crow listed as an ally.
Mm-hmm.
But upon first watch, she's a shapeshifter because you think that she's starting to stray on Malcolm. Cole, very much an ally to Malcolm and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
Lynn, an ally to Cole, never interacts with Malcolm because she doesn't see him.
He did.
Enemies, Vincent Gray, obviously. Tommy and Daryl, the two bullies that throw Cole in the cabinet in the stairs.
Yeah.
I didn't see really any other enemies.
I wrote Sean, Anna's maybe lover, who she has an almost kiss with, and Malcolm thinks she's cheating on him.
Tests. Now, we've already talked about a lot of what I have in tests, so I'm going to skip all those.
Okay.
Because there's no point in rehashing all of that. So, we jump ahead to Malcolm is working in his basement study at home, and someone knocks on the front door. And he calls up to his wife, "Are you going to get that?" He hears footsteps cross the floor, the door open, and then we hear a man ask Anna if she would like to join him on a shopping trip to the Amish flea market.
The answer to that question is always no. I don't care whether you're cheating on your husband or not. No.
I like the scene when Malcolm is watching this guy walk down the stairs to his car, and the guy turns around and he starts to come back to the house, and then he's got this moment of vacillating back and forth whether he wants to return to the house or not. Mm-hmm. Malcolm says,
"Keep moving, cheese dick."
This very evolved child psychologist calls him a cheese D.
The test there, I thought, was more for Anna. Is she maintaining her fidelity?
Yeah, I can see that.
Particularly upon first watch, because you don't know that Malcolm's not there anymore.
It's amazing how all these scenes work on multiple levels. It's so incredible that this whole movie has two contexts.
And that's why this movie deserves multiple viewings.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
At school, Mr. Cunningham is talking about the history of Philadelphia, asks if anyone can guess what the school that they are sitting in used to be before it was a school. And Cole reluctantly raises his hand, and Mr. Cunningham is surprised to see Cole actually volunteering to answer, but he offers him a chance to respond. And Cole says they used to hang people here. And there's this kid who's apparently he's the troublemaker of the school because he's writing like "I will not kick people" on the board over and over again.
Yeah.
And his chalk goes like screeches to a halt, and he looks over at Cole, and all the eyes in the classroom, everybody turns and they stare at Cole like, "What is this kid talking about?" Yeah. Mr. Cunningham says, No, I don't know who told you that, but this used to be a courthouse. This was legislators and judges used to work here. And he says, and Cole says, "Yeah, they're the ones who used to." And he tells this really scary, sad story.
They'd pull the people in crying and kissing their families by. People watching would spit at them.
And the whole class is just bug-eyed looking at Cole.
Yeah.
Cole then breaks. He tells the teacher, "Stop looking at me like that. Mm-hmm. I don't like it. It makes people feel bad. You shouldn't stare at people like that." And then I don't know how he knew. I'm assuming he heard from one of the ghosts that haunts the school.
Ghosts of students past.
The teacher used to be a stutterer when he was a student there. And the students called him Stuttering Stanley. So Cole starts saying, "Stuttering Stanley, Stuttering Stanley." And the teacher loses it and pounds his fist on Cole's desk. "Shut up, you freak!" Cut to Cole's in detention now. I'm assuming it's detention because you hear a bunch of kids outside playing, but Cole is sitting in this high back chair in a room by himself. Malcolm joins him and does this really bad magic trick.
Yeah.
What did you think of this scene?
I think Malcolm's grasping at straws to try and loosen up Cole. Just trying to comfort him. And it does the trick. And Cole gives him this deadpan look and says, "I didn't know you were funny." It's so great coming from a kid. Such great writing. But yeah, I also, thematically, I think it's Malcolm's way of saying to Cole, look, there's a difference between pretending and reality. And we both know that the penny's been in my hand the whole time. Let's bring you back into reality and have you live in the world of where the penny was the whole time, not this magic. Because later on in the movie, Cole tells him some magic is real. So he's saying, I know the difference between reality and magic. You're the one who doesn't know it. So I think that is a setup for that thematic turnabout that he gets. I mean, like I said, every line in this movie pays off. There's not a wasted moment in this film.
All right, so here's where I think we are going to separate, because that was my last test.
Same.
Oh, okay.
Well, I guess I had one other note there, but I didn't put it as a test. I just put it as a clue. Or he gets home and the wedding video is on.
Yes, sorry, that is my last note.
Yeah, he sees his wife crying in the shower, and he looks in the medicine cabinet and he sees Zoloft. You know, he kind of has this look on his face like, well, I would know if she was on Zoloft. Like, what's happening?
And remember when, at the beginning of the film, when Vincent Gray is in the bathroom and Malcolm thinks he's probably just a junkie looking for a fix, he says there are no needles or prescription pills in this house.
Yes, that's right.
Now, there are prescription pills in the house.
That brings us to approach to the inmost cave. The hero reaches the edge of a dangerous place where the object of his quest is hidden. A lot of the approach is expressed through Cole. Cole and Lynn attend the birthday party of one of Cole's classmates, Darren. What delineates the approach here is that Cole's encounters with ghosts become more intense and more real. So after Cole fails with the magic trick, he gives up trying to fit in and strikes out on his own, and he spots a red balloon, and he follows it up this spiral staircase because apparently he has never seen or read it and does not know that following a red balloon is literally the stupidest thing you can do in a horror movie. So he goes up to the top of the stairs and he hears these voices coming from the darkness beyond this old castle-looking half-door cabinet thing. Tommy Tomasimo and the birthday boy, Darren, play a trick on him and they stuff him into the closet and slam the door. And Cole is screaming and pounding on the door. He's clearly terrified. And then all of a sudden he goes silent. And then the red balloon pops and he starts screaming and pounding the door again. Cut to downstairs, loud music is blaring, but Lynn, with her mother bat hearing, hears Cole, and she comes up the stairs and she gets to the door and she hears him. He's screaming, "Help me, no, help." And she's yanking on the door, trying to get it open, but she can't get in. And then all of a sudden, Cole goes totally silent and she reaches for the doorknob and turns it and it opens and out tumbles Cole. Cut to hospital room. They're in the waiting room. Lynn is meeting with Dr. Shyamalan, who says that Cole's blood work shows no sign of a seizure. He's fine, but he's found some cuts and bruises that concern him. And this is where we see Malcolm is in this scene. We only see a shot of him, but it's like, oh, okay, Malcolm's there, right? And he sort of sits back and looks away and goes, oh, man. Because he's already seen marks on Cole and concluded that they aren't the mother. But he sees where this is going. It's going to this dark place. And I said Dr. Shyamalan. It's M. Night Shyamalan's cameo in this movie is as this doctor. And he says, hey, there's a social worker who's going to question you. And I place this in approach because the consequences of Cole's interactions with the ghosts are becoming more intense. And his need for Malcolm's help is intensifying. This is coming to a head now. It's getting more dangerous. Malcolm enters Cole's hospital room and tries to tell him a bedtime story.
Oh my God,
but
it's awful.
Totally around like it's a guy who's driving. It's Prince, and it's just awful. And
he falls asleep, and then he wakes up, and they're still driving.
Yeah, it's just and Cole says, Dr. Crow, you haven't told bedtime stories before. You have to add some twists and stuff. Nice humble brag, Shyamalan. Cole, being perceptive, sees right through what's going on and says, tell me the story about why you're sad. So now Malcolm's approaching his inmost cave, his reckoning. He shares in broad strokes about his failure with Vincent and how he's trying to atone for his failure with Cole. And Cole finally feels comfortable enough to share his secret.
I see dead people.
This is the most intense scene in this movie because Malcolm is almost completely still. He knows this is a fragile moment, so he's whispering back, and Cole's telling him the truth of this horrible experiences that he's having. After this scene, Malcolm records a note to himself. He says, Cole's suffering from hallucinations, paranoia, some kind of school-age schizophrenia. I'm not helping him. So he's sensing that he's failing. And then to me, the end of the approach is when back at home, Lynn finds the holes in Cole's sweater and the cuts on his back. And she just cries in frustration and confusion and despair. And in a scene that made me think of Ralphie's mom in A Christmas Story, she gets on the phone and calls like Tommy's mom or Darren's mom and says, I want to talk about your boys keeping their goddamn hands off my son. And she's so calm about it. Lynn gets Mother of the Year award, as far as I'm concerned. So that's where I think approach ends.
Oh, boy. That brings us to the ordeal. The hero faces the ultimate test, often risking death to overcome his worst fear, sometimes actually appearing to die. Here's where we diverge.
Okay. Oh, good. Okay.
For me, the scene at the hospital, I saw that as the ordeal because Malcolm voices to Cole his dark place. And Cole responds in kind. They're both opening up to each other. Cole, after having been sort of beaten back at school when he tried to answer the question about what the school used to be, he takes a leap with Malcolm and tells him his terrible secret.
I can see that.
Displaying trust, and then asks Malcolm to stay until he falls asleep. Like that is a huge display of trust.
Yeah, I can see that.
And allowing yourself to be completely vulnerable in that way.
Yeah.
That's my ordeal. What do you have then?
Well, I think you're right. And that would make me place... Well, it's funny. If that's the ordeal, then to me, Cole sharing I see dead people would be part of a reward. But the thing that I have as ordeal, I can really see as road back. My reward framed where my ordeal was, as it often does. Reward, the ultimate boon. Having faced their worst fear, the hero seizes the object of their quest. Now, the object of Malcolm's quest, as I saw it, is helping Cole. My reward that I found is Malcolm sitting in his basement office brooding when he remembers a specific moment in Vincent Gray's case. So Cole says in an earlier scene, "Don't fail me." Or, oh man, I don't know the best way to have this make sense. I guess I have to go through what I see as the ordeal. I'll do a zoom out version of my ordeal. To me, the ordeal is Cole starts seeing the ghosts and we start seeing the ghosts. To this point, we haven't seen dead people. We've only heard Cole talking about them. We have seen Malcolm, but we don't know he's dead, so it doesn't count, right? So Cole's ordeal is this reckoning with these ghosts. Now, I see how this could be rowed back because the ghosts are now manifesting and haunting him. But the key moment in the ordeals for me is, for Malcolm, it's what he sees as the romantic betrayal, the symbolic death of his marriage when he is watching through the window of the jewelry store. Anna gives Sean, her employee, his birthday gift, and they almost kiss. And then the window mysteriously breaks and we see Malcolm walking away from the store. So I saw that as him witnessing his romantic death. And then for Cole and for Malcolm, you hear Cole over the scene asking Malcolm, "What do you want more than anything?" And he says, "I want to be able to talk to my wife again. I can't be your doctor anymore. I haven't paid enough to her." So he quits. That's the death of his journey of helping Cole. So to me, the romantic betrayal, the death of his marriage, the fact that he quits, those were the reasons why I identified that as ordeal. Mm-hmm. If we back up a little bit, this is when we start to see the ghosts. This is literally facing death, and it's his worst fear. I didn't finish my reward because I jumped back to unpacking my ordeal, but there's a couple more bullet points of reward that to me are really solid. After he quits, he goes to his home basement office, and he looks over and sees the Vincent Gray box, his case file, which he's never let go. And he remembers Vincent saying, "Do you know why you're afraid when you're alone? I do." And he digs out the case file and he plays back a cassette tape recording of one of their therapy sessions. And he comes to a point during the recording when Malcolm steps out of the office to take a phone call. And when he comes back in, he goes, "Oh, it's cold in here. Vincent, why are you crying?" Vincent says, "You won't believe." And so Malcolm rewinds the tape, and this time he plays back the part of the recording when he wasn't in the room. And he hears a voice speaking Spanish telling Vincent, "I don't want to die." And he realizes, oh my God, Vincent was hearing ghosts like Cole. This is a reward because he's got evidence that Cole is telling the truth. And then the last part of reward, he finds Cole in the church and says, "What do you think the ghosts want when they talk to you?" And Cole says, "They want help." And he says, "Yes, I agree. I think I know how to make them go away. You have to listen." That is the turning point launching us into Act 3.
That we joke about it a lot, but that is literally like the end of my road back.
Interesting.
All right, well, it's probably the end of your such and such a section. Well, yeah, we've just done it. So for me, my reward was back at the hospital, the reward is that major psychological or psychiatric breakthrough, Cole opening up to Malcolm and telling him his secret, beginning the path to healing. The romantic stuff and him thinking that he has to quit Cole so that he can work on his marriage, all that was vengeful forces. I'm saying you've got an opportunity to help this kid now, but now he's got to quit because his marriage is falling apart. I saw all that as vengeful forces.
I understand why.
Well, that concludes Act 2 then.
Yeah.
Boy, howdy.
Oof.
Let us take a break and wander over to the Vogler Lounge and see what themed beverages you and I have come up with for the Sixth Sense.
Welcome to the Vogler Lounge, where after a very tumultuous Act 2,
especially that last part,
it's time for us to have a beverage. I can't wait to see what you came up with.
It's just NyQuil.
On ice, so you don't have to taste it.
NyQuil on the rocks. Now, for starters, when Malcolm and Anna are celebrating his receipt of the mayoral certification for professional excellence, they're drinking red wine. So I have a red wine called Phantom. 2018 California Red Blend. This is from Boggle Vineyards. This is another reason why this works. When Cole is talking to Malcolm in the hallway after the school play, and he sees the three people hanging, and he says, you know that feeling when the hairs on your arm stand up? Well, guess what? The text on the back of this bottle says, you know that feeling, a sensation that someone or something is with you when you thought you were alone.
Oh my God. I do.
Yeah, so
Amazing.
Anyhow, this was my wife's find. I pre-opened it because I wanted it to breathe a bit. Although now that I'm thinking about it, I'm hoping that I'll be able to actually smell and taste this.
Oh, guess we'll
That'll
find
be
out.
funny.
It smells like water.
Okay, I can smell something. Okay, that's bizarre. It's a little bit of acetone, which isn't entirely pleasant.
That's like paint thinner, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not how you want your wine to smell. Drives the ghosts away.
But there's something like, I want to say cherry pie.
What a sweet surprise.
And specifically, I say cherry pie because it smells baked. You know that smell of baked goods?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's got that.
Okay. Acetone and
I don't
burnt
understand
bread.
why.
Got it.
All right. Well, I can't smell anything else, so let's see what it tastes like. Really tart. Wow. Like my head twitched there. Like an involuntary, you know, like when you're a little kid and you take liquid Robitussin.
Oh God.
And your whole head just goes, it just twitches violently because it's so bad. This isn't so bad. It's because your taste buds and your neck have been assaulted by this really powerful sensation that it's not used to. That's the same thing here. Okay, I don't know what I tasted though, besides just it being super tart. There is a sense of cherry cough medicine flavor.
Oh man. Do you think maybe your taste buds are being impacted by COVID?
Probably.
Like, should you give this another shot at the next episode to redeem itself?
It's not unpleasant.
Almost like
it's interesting that my notes for you're reading those as unpleasant.
I guess I expect medicinal, like in a brandy or something, but not in a red. I never had a red wine that tasted like medicine.
I don't feel like I'm equipped to, because I'm so diminished right now. I don't think I'm getting the full experience, and maybe this could do with some decanting too. Maybe I'll just let this sit for a while.
There you go.
And let the air get to it for a bit and see how, if it evolves over time. But I know I'm definitely, I'm on the recovering end of illness. But anytime you're sick, your senses are dulled.
Yeah.
And so that may be,
well, and especially with COVID,
my experience here. So anyway, what do you have?
I really wanted a whiskey because I'm out.
Okay.
And I didn't want to buy more beer because I haven't been drinking a lot of beer. So I had something in mind, and I was running short on time, and I walked into Bevmo, and I found it right away, and that is Dead Guy Whiskey.
Yes! I almost got that too.
From Rogue. I've never tasted this. Rogue makes Dead Guy Ale, and now they have Dead Guy Whiskey. Sorry about the reflections.
Yes.
And the topper is
good.
a Skull Guy. And it's heavy. I took the cork out, and like to set it down, it was like clunk. I was like, oh my God, that's the heavy. It's a pewter.
That is awesome.
Cork.
I had intended to get a bottle of Dead Guy Ale, and then Michelle found the Phantom wine. So we would have been in sync on that one. That's awesome.
I was very nervous that we picked the same thing. I thought there was a high probability. So unlike our ordeal, we would have picked the same thing. So this is what it looks like. It looks darker in real life.
Oh, okay. Because on camera it looks
straw,
sort of pale,
but it's
kind of a apple juice color.
Yeah, it is. It looks darker in real life, but not by a lot. So it's got a apple juicy kind of color to it. Okay, it definitely doesn't have the sweetness of bourbon, and it doesn't have the ethanol hit of like Jack Daniel's. Mm-hmm. I wonder what the mash is. I know there's barley in it because it's the same mash that they use to make Dead Guy Ale. Oh wow! All right. That's got some fumes. All right, here we go. I'll take a sip.
Got your nose a little too deep in that glass, huh?
Wow.
Really? Right in the kisser.
Oh, burns. A lot of burn in this whiskey.
Is it high alcohol?
It's 40% alcohol by volume. Very burny.
Proof.
Very acidic. Makes me salivate. I'm still salivating. The flavor that was in the smell is so weak compared to the ethanol hit. And I poured this, I want to say 5 minutes ago. So it's not like it came right out of there's a lot of residue on the glass. So it's oily. Wow. I'm going to pour it over ice because I would not drink this straight. It's too astringent. Looks even paler now. Let me take a sip with it a little colder. Okay, that mellows out the astringentedness. Oh man. Still burns. Very aggressive and too expensive to use as a mixer. So I'll drink the rest of it, but it's not a smooth drinking whiskey by any means. It is pow in your face. You know what? It almost tastes like a rye because it's got that bite. So you could probably make a Manhattan with it.
Is it a high rye bourbon? Although you said
It's not a bourbon.
Oh, it's not?
No. Distilled in small batches from the same malts as award-winning Dead Guy Ale.
So is it just American whiskey then?
It just says whiskey with an E. Ocean aged in oak barrels for at least 2 years.
So just American whiskey?
Yeah, it's just whiskey.
Okay.
I'm looking at the website and it says our award-winning American single malt whiskey is pot distilled from 100% malted barley at our distillery on the Oregon coast.
Okay.
Ingredients: 2-row, Munich, and C15 malts. How is that a single malt if they just listed 2-row Munich and C15 malts?
When you are talking about whiskeys, when you say something is a single malt, single refers to the number of distillers sourced.
Well, it's all malted barley. I guess that's what it means.
The second word refers to what grain is in the whiskey.
Better with ice. Now I can taste like a little bit of sweetness that wasn't there before and a little bit of pepper. And now I don't know how to describe this. Now it's seated on like the middle of my tongue instead of the edges. And it's far less burnt. So water and cold really opened it up. Maybe I could have just put some water in it and that would have opened it up. But the ice is tamping down the ethanol astringent quality. And now I taste a little bit of sweetness and pepper.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. Okay. I can drink this now on ice.
Less disappointed? Okay. So
less disappointed.
So
maybe it's just, I prefer whiskey on ice, and maybe this is a good example of why it tones down the notes that I don't like and brings out the ones that I do. But now I'm enjoying this. I was really worried. I was disappointed, but a little bit of time on ice. Yeah. And it's won tons of awards in whiskey competitions. All right, well, maybe this will mellow as it goes on, and you can drink your NyQuil wine and Robitussin, and we'll dive into Act 3.
All right. Well, but before we do that, we have one spot of business to take care of.
Oh, yes.
Welcoming our new patron, I like it when we get to welcome new patrons on an episode.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun.
Travis Castle.
Yes, Travis.
Thank you very much for joining us on Patreon. We appreciate your support. Thanks for listening. And I wonder if Travis Castle is a descendant of William Castle, director of House on Haunted Hill, and that's why he joined us, because he thought we were going to talk about his grandfather's movie, but it didn't win the poll, so now he's going to drop his support. I don't know. But for now, cheers to you, Travis. Cheers to all the patrons and listeners. Thank you so much for your support.
And now, Act 3.
Act 3 begins with the road back. The hero is pursued by vengeful forces disturbed when they seized the object of their quest. Now, I mentioned it before. From my perspective, the appearance of all of these ghosts now, particularly to the viewer, these are the vengeful forces.
That's a strong argument.
After returning home from the hospital, Cole gets up in the middle of the night. He's doing the pee-pee dance in his doorway, and you can tell he's scared, but nature takes over, and he scurries to the bathroom, goes to bed. And as he's peeing with the door open, we see like a robe walk by, but James Newton Howard's score lets us know that this is a sinister figure and not just mom walking by.
And even more effective in contrast to his like pee-pee shuffle. That was so authentic. Haley Joel Osment, wow. Like his performance is amazing, but the pee-pee like crossing his legs, that is so legit. Like kids actually do that. And then the shuffle, he's just shuffling. Oh. How many kids get to do a pee scene in a movie? Like, that's rare.
So after using the restroom, Cole goes to the kitchen where he's hearing rummaging. And he sees from behind a woman in a robe, and he says, "Mama?" And the figure turns around. It's not Mama. It is some other woman, and she's got a black eye. And she says, "No, dinner is not ready yet." And then she holds out her wrists, and her wrists have been slashed. And this freaks out Cole. He runs back into his red blanket fort with the red-robed Jesus that he stole from the church.
All that iconography.
Earlier.
Like, he's stolen a lot of stuff.
We haven't talked a whole lot about when we see red in this movie.
I've got a tidbits segment that's like 10 hours long about that.
Anytime there's red, it is an indication that there is a crossover between the world of the living and the world of the dead.
Yeah.
And it is notable that Cole's blanket fort is entirely red.
Yeah.
This is unresolved trauma that he is using to shield himself from beyond.
Yeah.
After attending Cole's school play, Malcolm is talking to Cole about what he told him in the hospital about seeing dead people. Cole stops walking because there are three figures in
Renaissance fair 18th
18th century outfits hanging from nooses in the hallway. And this supports Cole's statement earlier in class that they used to hang people here.
Yeah.
Now we know why he said this. Mm-hmm. And this is where he says,
"Do you ever feel the prickly things on the back of your neck?
Yes.
And the tiny hairs on your arm, you know, when they stand up?
Yes.
That's them."
Now, I challenge you to watch that scene and not have the hair on your neck stand up, because how often do we ever... that was a great moment of acknowledging the mythology and putting it into the real world.
Yeah.
Very similar to The Matrix when they talk about a deja vu.
Yes. Nailed it.
But Cole asks Malcolm, "Make them go away." And Malcolm says, "I'm working on it." And then we see Cole. We haven't talked about this at all yet, but Tommy, Cole's bully, is an actor. He's a child actor. And he's so full of himself.
Yeah, he's a jack-A.
So now we see the cough syrup commercial that Tommy's actually
so
in when
funny.
Cole is sitting at home at the dinner table in the kitchen. And it is reminiscent, I thought, of Anna Klumsky's 1988 Chloraseptic commercials. Do you remember this one? It'll hurt if I swallow.
Yes.
It'll hurt if I swallow. It'll hurt if I...
Mommy!
Mommy!
Wait, who was the actress? How do you know this? Who was in it?
Anna Klumsky. My Girl.
Oh, wow.
That was her.
Yeah. And so Tommy sits there and he's like looking up at his mom and then looking up at his dad. And the kid,
like puppy dog
the kid who plays it,
Trevor Morgan
did a great comic overplaying of that moment, pretending to be a bad actor. I thought it was great. His performance is so good in general in that movie. He's a good bad guy.
He's also if you've seen Jurassic Park 3, he's the kid in Jurassic Park 3 that the parents go to the island to rescue. Oh. That's Trevor Morgan also.
Trevor Morgan.
Anyhow, in this scene, Lynn and Cole now sit down to dinner. And it is cold. Mom is monkeying with the thermostat. She says, I don't care what they say. This thing is broken.
Mm-hmm. By ghosts, Mom.
Something's going on in the apartment. Lynn confronts Cole about this bumblebee pendant that keeps disappearing, and she's finding it in Cole's bureau.
Yeah.
She asks, did you take the pendant? And Cole says no. And Lynn is getting more and more upset.
Yeah.
This is the most angry we have seen her be at Cole.
Yeah.
She says, if we don't talk to each other, we're not going to make it. That's a key statement.
I've never watched this movie as a parent until now. And watching this moment through a parent's eyes was so hard because I think of all the times when my kids have misbehaved and they're not being jerks, so there's just something going on that I can't see. And it hurts so much to watch this woman who's been so amazing to this kid finally hit her limit and be like, leave the table. I'm sick of you lying. Oh, it was so hard to watch because you know she's wrong, but you also are like, look at what this woman has done, what she's been through, how much she sticks up for her kid. And rough, man. So
she sends Cole to bed without dinner. And as Cole's walking down the hallway to his room, the dog, squealing, runs out of Cole's room. And then we see this boy come out of the bedroom and he says, hey, come here, I'll show you where my dad keeps his gun. And then he turns around and the back of this kid's head is missing. Ooh. So this is what freaked out the dog. And then Lynn is trying to get the dog. The dog is like hidden in the closet or something. Lynn's trying to get the dog out. And Cole comes up behind Lynn and says, Mama, if you're not too angry, can I sleep in your bed tonight? And this statement that Lynn says at least 3 times to Cole throughout the film, look at my face. I'm not very angry. And then they embrace and everything's better now. So she's trying so hard.
Yeah.
I love Lynn in this movie. You can see her just struggling to do what's right and being so confused about what's happening to her son. I just want to know what's going on. And so they embrace, and this is when Lynn notices that Cole is violently trembling.
Yeah.
When she's holding him, and she just like starts to panic again. She's like, please tell me what is wrong with you.
Yeah.
Then we cut to Anna. Boy, you have all this in your ordeal. But Anna's working at her antique shop, selling the Burmese sapphire engagement ring to this young couple. It's a humorous scene. I think at this point we need a little break. And as she's supposed to be wrapping up the ring, this is where Sean comes in. She gives him the birthday gift. They almost kiss. Mm-hmm. And this is when the front window in the store breaks. And everybody runs outside to see what it was. And we see Malcolm walking down the alley, but nobody else sees him. All right, now this is where Malcolm returns to Cole and says, I can't help you anymore. I can't be your psychiatrist. I'm going to transfer you to somebody else. And Cole begs him, don't fail me. And this is a trigger word almost.
Oh,
because this is what Vincent Gray said to Malcolm at the beginning of the film. You failed me.
It made me wonder, has Cole seen the ghost or spoken to the ghost of Vincent Gray? Is that how he knows to say that? Because he says other things in the movie that have been clued in, like Stuttering Stanley.
That would be interesting.
Right? And oh God, who knows if that's in the subtext. But
anyhow, Cole begs him to stay. He says, you're the only one that can help me. I know you are. And then he slides the penny across the table and he says, some magic's real. I feel bad going over all this again because all this you've already discussed. But
hey, The Sixth Sense has a totally separate analysis after he's dead. So it's totally legit for you to give it another analysis.
Yeah.
Because my analysis is dead.
So now we've got Malcolm sitting in his study and he's remembering Vincent's words. This is where he listens to the old session recording, hears the ghost speaking in Spanish, yo no quiero morir, which means I don't want to die. And now he knows Cole was telling the truth. Mm-hmm. Finds Cole in the church. He says, they just want help. We have to listen to them. I saw this as part of the function of the road of trials, or test allies and enemies, as we've said in previous episodes, is arming for the final battle. And now, armed with this knowledge of we have to listen to the ghosts in order to help the ghosts, is what enables them to do what they do next. Cole now hears his mother having a nightmare. She's screaming in her sleep. He is sleeping in his red blanket fort, and this wakes him up, and he runs down the hallway to her bedroom, and he puts his tiny little hand on her forehead, and he caresses her cheek, and this immediately calms her down.
Yeah, it's so, like, that's what happens in sleep. It was such a legit moment.
And he says, "Mama, you sleep now." And it works. Lynn calms down. Cole returns to his room and notices the fog of his breath. Remember earlier, he says when they get mad, it gets cold. So there's an upset ghost nearby. And he panics. He hides into his blanket fort. The top of it starts separating. And this is a great reveal by Shyamalan. The camera is tracking the top, the peak of his blanket fort. We're seeing the clothespins pop. Then we pan down to this young girl just vomiting. Oh my God, it's such a freaky scene. This young girl played by Misha Barton, for you OC fans. Cole panics. He flees into the living room, collapses behind the couch. She's crying. But then this little kid gets up and he remembers what Malcolm says. We have to listen to them to help them. And he returns to his room, and his blanket fort is destroyed now. So that's a symbolic thing.
His shield is gone.
Correct. And he takes the blanket and he pulls it off of the figure that's still sitting huddled on the floor. And we see this girl, and she looks up at him and says, "I'm feeling much better now." And he says in this completely terrified voice, "Is there something you want to tell me?" That's the end of the Road of Trials.
We agree. So we're back in sync.
Oh, goody.
And it's funny, I have a note here at the beginning of the road back. Man, this sequence was so short. And that's a clue that I was off. Although, man, I really believe in my reward. But whatever, I've already spoken my case. So the only thing you didn't mention that I saw as Vengeful Forces is Malcolm goes home and he sees Sean, the employee who almost kissed his wife, leaving his apartment. The vengeful force implied here is that Malcolm said he was going to quit Cole and focus on his wife, but he didn't, and now another man is taking his place. I just thought that was a moment of vengeful force.
I agree with you, and I noted that somewhere, and I don't see it now. So again, when I was doing my furious NyQuil-infused cutting and pasting.
Well, now that Dan and I are back on track, Resurrection. The hero faces death one more time in an ordeal, battle, or showdown. This time the danger is on the broadest scale of the entire story. I don't know that encapsulates the resurrection here. He does face death.
Yes.
And he does have a showdown because for the first time, he's listened to a restless spirit, and he's using that knowledge and taking it back, crossing the return threshold. Malcolm and Cole go to Kyra's funeral, and Cole goes into her room and finds a special box, and he gives it to Kyra's dad. And inside the box is a video home system video cassette tape device. And Dad pops it into the video cassette recorder and presses play. And what we see is a puppet show Kyra was filming. And then she takes the puppet show away and runs and gets in bed. And her mom comes in, and captured on the video, intentionally or unintentionally, it's not made clear, but her mom comes in and sets down a tray in full view of the camera. And
what is intentionally or unintentionally, do you think?
Whether or not she's trying to capture her mom on camera. Because
I absolutely think it's intentional.
You think it's intentional?
Of course.
Because I know she rushes back to her bed because she doesn't want her mom to find her up and about.
Why else would she move the puppet show away? It's like on a rolling cart, and the camera is shoved in the back of a bookcase or something, and that's right where Mom puts the tray.
Sure.
That's a repeated act that Mom does. Mom always puts the tray on that shelf, poisons it.
The plot hole that creates, though, if it's explicit that it's on purpose, is that why didn't she approach her dad while she was alive and say, "Mom's doing this to me"? So I think leaving it unclear makes it easier to buy, because if she knew she was being poisoned, there's a whole other chain of possible actions and reactions. Why didn't she give her the tape while she was like that? That opens a whole can of worms about believability to me, that it's better left unclear.
I think also we need to remember that kids are often afraid to share, especially kids that are undergoing traumatic events. So let's keep that in mind.
Sure, but again, if it's made explicit that she did it on purpose, we have to assume all of this. We have to take for granted all this other stuff, and we don't know her that well. So I get your argument. I just think it opens a can of worms if you say absolutely she did it on purpose, because then I have a bunch of questions about why did this even happen, and I have to guess at the answers, and that's not tight. That leaves unanswered questions. Leaving it ambiguous solves that problem. Shyamalan is so tight in this screenplay. I think he left it ambiguous on purpose. That's just my interpretation. Maybe you find an interview where you prove me wrong, but I get what you're saying.
Find an interview. Okay. Why poison? Why wait till you get the food up to the girl's room before you poison it? Why not do it downstairs while you're preparing it?
She didn't want her husband to see it while she was preparing the food. I don't know.
Her husband's at work.
So again, if this was all made clear, there's a bunch of questions to answer, right? This is
I'm just saying I've got my own questions now because of my perspective. So, okay.
You're right. It's a convenient plot device. Without this moment, there's no big revelation. It has to be a video. Maybe this is the loose screw in the only loose screw in the perfect screenplay that you've just ruined for me by bringing this up.
You're so fragile.
In any case, snowflake. So what she captures on camera is her mom putting down a tray with soup and then pouring cleaning solution into the soup.
It's supposed to be pine sol, but it's called new pine.
So she says, and don't complain that it tastes funny. I don't like to hear that.
Yeah.
So he brings the box, opens it. He gets the video cassette, puts it in the VCR, watches this, and then gets up and accuses the mother, says, you were keeping her sick. And earlier, when we first get to the funeral, one of the funeral goers mentions, as the camera is just sort of passing, that the younger daughter is starting to fall ill.
Yep.
So now, with Cole's help, Kyra, the restless spirit, has helped save her sister's life, because now mom won't be able to poison her anymore.
Correct.
So Cole, by being brave, has helped resolve this ghost's problem, and now that ghost can rest in peace.
Yes.
This is the whole point of the story, is that Cole's power can be used to help these spirits, so he doesn't have to be afraid of them anymore. He just has to listen and help them, and then he can move on.
Notable that mom, this is a funeral. Remember, everyone's wearing dark clothing, black. Mom is in a bright red skirt suit. Unresolved trauma.
Now we're at the school play, and Tommy Thomasimo has to play the village idiot this time. And Cole is King Arthur taking the sword from the stone, literally seizing the sword, Dan.
Yes.
And the whole cast carries him away on their shoulders. This is a callback to earlier in the movie when mom gets home and says, hey, here's what I did today. I won the lottery, and then I went to the park. And he makes
all
up
these
this
fantasy
items.
And
he makes up this fantasy of being picked first for dodgeball and being carried on the shoulder. So now his fantasies come true. This is a resurrection of his dream of being socially integrated.
Right. Full circle is what I wrote.
So afterward, in the stairwell, he and Malcolm are talking, and he says, I have an idea on how you can talk to your wife. Wait till she's asleep. Then she'll listen to you, and she won't even know it. That's terrible marriage advice in the real world, Cole. That's just... But of course, it is good advice.
9.
And then afterward, Malcolm wants to say goodbye, and Cole says, can we just pretend that we're going to see each other again? So for the first time, he wants to see a ghost again. And Malcolm says, okay, I'll see you tomorrow. They're playing along, but that's their goodbye. We know that they're not going to see each other again. And to me, that's the end of Resurrection. By the way, I just poured more Dead Guy whiskey. I can't remember the last time I poured a second drink during the Resurrection, and I was complaining about not enjoying it. It goes down easier after you've had one.
Good.
Just saying.
The final segment is Return with the Elixir, or the Freedom to Live. The hero, having won some precious treasure or reward, now returns to the ordinary world to share the spoils of battle. Driving home from the play, Lynn and Cole are stuck in traffic behind an accident. And Cole says to his mom, I'm ready to communicate with you now. And tells his mother that he can see and communicate with ghosts. First by saying, the reason we're stuck behind this accident is because there was a woman on a bicycle who was struck by a car and killed, and she's standing right next to me. And of course, Lynn looks at the window, doesn't see anything. She's like, what are you talking about? And then he takes a leap and he says, Grandma says hi. She's sorry for taking the bumblebee pendant. Now, Lynn's immediate reaction is she thinks Cole's starting to tell lies again. Then Cole digs deeper and says, when you were a little girl, you got into a fight before your dance recital, and you thought she didn't come see you dance, but she did. And you went to her gravesite and asked a question. And the answer is, every day. What did you ask? And Toni Collette does this great performance. Do I make her proud? Mother and son collapse into sobbing.
Not me. I'm good.
Jeff,
Nope.
Hold it together. Your tears aren't going to help Gary Bertier walk again.
I got to tell you, man, parenthood is really hard, but I appreciate things about films that I didn't appreciate before. And that scene when her kid tells her something that heals it, this movie's about healing, you know?
Yeah.
And you never expected him to heal his mom. And it comes out of nowhere, and it's one sentence. And he planted it in Act 1 it's just like, what a genius. This whole movie, the writing of this movie is genius. And I'm just going to say it. M. Night Shyamalan, if this is the last thing he ever did, he's a writing genius. This movie is genius in the purest definition of the word. And this scene is another example of, here's something you didn't need to make this movie brilliant. But it's in there anyway.
Yeah. Oh. And of course, these are tidbits that Cole would have no way of knowing, and so serve as proof to Mom that Cole's telling the truth. He really can see dead people.
And he wanted to tell her at the dinner table, but he didn't. And she was so pissed off. And that's what's going on with her too, is she's regretting not believing him and punishing him. And there's so much going on. She just collapses in on herself. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oscar.
All right. So that resolves Cole's story. He lives the rest of his life, I would assume, helping restless spirits resolve their unresolved traumas and reach the other side. I enjoy the experience of imagining what Cole's life is like you or me, living your life, but sometimes he sees a ghost and he's like, okay, all right, now what do I got to do? How do I help this person? Was he able to maintain a normal life? Imagine how difficult it is to hold a job when you're seeing ghosts every day and you have to stop what you're doing and do whatever they need to do to get help. And, part of me thinks he ends up being this homeless paranormal helper. And
you nailed it, dude. This is an analog for mental illness. And something you just said it inspired me so much when you were just talking about what happens after the end of a movie and wanting a sequel and that not being the point. Like the unresolved parts are part of what makes the ending so satisfying. I forget which John Green novel it is. One of the characters is this old crusty novelist, and they go see him and they say, what happens at the end of this book? And he says, that's none of your business and it's not my job. The book's over. The story ends. Whatever else there is in your imagination. And you nailed it. I've had people go, you should write a sequel to Symptoms of Being Human. And I'm like, what? No. The end of the story isn't the end of life unless the character's dead. Mm-hmm. And the fact that it goes on, that's the point, is that it ends and that's it. That's the end. And this movie has arguably, of all films, has a perfect ending. It's perfect. You can't beat it. Shut up. Leave them wanting more.
We have one more story to resolve, though. Malcolm returns home, and the wedding video is playing on the television again. Mm-hmm. This time, his wife is sleeping in a chair in the room. He sits next to her and, taking Cole's advice, begins trying to speak to her. And she responds, I miss you. He responds in kind, and she says, why did you leave me? And shifts, and in doing so, drops a ring on the floor that rolls under the chair she's sitting in and circles and lands at his feet. And he looks at that ring, and then he looks up at her hand, and she's still wearing her rings, her wedding rings. And he looks at his own hand, and his ring is gone. That's his ring at his feet. And then he starts flashing back to these moments of, I see dead people walking around like other people. They don't know they're dead. They see what they want to see. And then now we see the red handled door under the stairs, and the reason he hasn't been able to open it all this time is because there's a table shoved up next to it with a bunch of books on it. So that's why he hasn't been able to open it. They see what they want to see. He hasn't seen the table before. And flashes back, finally, the moment of his shooting when he tells Anna, I think I'm fine. It doesn't even hurt anymore. And then you see the light go out of his eyes, and you hear this one last long exhale as he dies. And then we resolve back to Malcolm sitting next to his wife, and he says,
I think I can go now. Just needed to do a couple things. I needed to help someone. I think I did.
That was his unresolved trauma. The business with Vincent Gray and the one boy that he failed, helping the next one.
Here's what I love about this twist. I'm in for the ride without it. It doesn't need to be there for this to be a great movie. And the fact that it is there and it goes back and like doubles the value of everything that happens is such a bonus surprise. I mean, that's why this twist works, is because you're on the ride anyway. And this is just like a bonus surprise. Thank you for sticking with the journey. I can't think of another movie that has a better twist ever.
Planet of the Apes?
Yeah, I get the Planet of the Apes thing, but as far as emotional punch,
it's a really good one. And it defined audiences' expectations of Shyamalan's work going forward.
Yeah.
I think that has been a really heavy cross to bear because he has tried in many films to deliver in the same way, but it's hard to
it's a shame
catch
too,
that same spark.
Because his real talent is making you care about unusual characters. That's what makes The Sixth Sense work, not the twist. The twist is bonus. But imagine your debut produced screenplay makes 10 times its budget.
Oh, this was his third film.
Oh, you're right. It's his third film. But imagine that comes out and now you're the twist guy.
I remember when Unbreakable came out and everybody was super excited to see it because, like, okay, here's Shyamalan's next movie. And
right. How are you going to impress me now?
Even I was really down on it. But years later, watch it again. And I think Unbreakable is a more interesting story. Now, especially now that he has fulfilled his idea for a trilogy, that's done now with Split and Glass.
I haven't seen any of those films.
You haven't seen Unbreakable?
No. I may have. No, I don't think I did.
What? You saw and loved The Sixth Sense, but then the dude's next movie came out and you didn't see it? I don't even know you anymore. With that, I hope all hanging threads have been snipped, all traumas have been resolved, and you may now rest in peace. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us for this hero's journey of The Sixth Sense.
Please share the hero's journey with friends, like and subscribe, rate and review, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. If you would like to support the podcast, please go to patreon.com/Heroes Journey Podcast. All patrons receive access to bonus audio where we discuss trivia about the film or the book we've just covered. Other tiers include access to video segments and the right to vote on the subject of future episodes.
Thank you to all patrons who make this show possible, including our demigod patrons, John Peterson Jr., Scott Sanford, Ricky Garvin, Jeff Scott, Joseph Wilbur, Michelle Calderon, Ami Garvin, Salathiel Jones, Jasmine and Pete Hudson, Mike and Susie Zarzana, Randy Sparks, and Justin Purvis.
Special thanks to Taylor Jordan for composing the Hero's Journey music, and thanks to Jason Dorff for the episode artwork. Links to their portfolios can be found on the About page of heroesjourneypodcast.com.
The Sixth Sense is copyright 1999, Spyglass Entertainment Group LP. Thanks again for listening. Until next time,
journey on.
Silence, village idiot.